Assume as a startup, you have created a product or a service that you think is having a global potential. Now, for the initial crank of the wheel, you would want to test and make sure that it is indeed working with a good, reasonable cash flow that can help it survive and scale up. Now, is there a market for you that will accept this product or service easily and you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops for making sure that this test can actually take place? Why is US so uniquely poised for being a test bed for such products and service? Stay tuned.
Let's dive into a question that's kind of hiding in plain sight. Why do so many of the tech companies that literally shape our world come from just one country? As we're about to see, the answer is all about an unfair advantage, and it's built on some really deep foundations. Let's get into it. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward question, right? But the answer is anything but. Why is it that the logos on your phone, the platforms you use every single day, the software that runs our lives, why does it all overwhelmingly come from the United States? Well, I can tell you this, it is no accident. You know, this single sentence right here, it's pretty much the core of this entire explainer. This is what the source material calls the unfair advantage, this unique recipe of factors that makes the US an absolute powerhouse for building massive, world-changing companies. So you gotta understand, this isn't about one single thing. It's about a whole series of interconnected advantages that work together like a perfectly tuned machine. And it's all designed to produce a very specific and very rare kind of success. And that special outcome is what's known as a power law success. Think of it like this. Venture capital isn't about hitting a bunch of singles or doubles. It's about swinging for the fences and hitting that one grand slam that pays for all the other strikeouts. The entire US system is optimized to find and fund those grand slams faster than anywhere else on Earth. So how does it do it? Well, it all comes down to three crucial pillars. All right, let's start with the foundation. Pillar number one, the unified launchpad. This is all about removing friction right from the very beginning. It lets a company scale at a speed that is, frankly, just impossible in most other parts of the world. This launchpad has three key parts: a single language, a single legal system, and a single unified infrastructure for things like payments and shipping. Sounds almost too simple, right? But the impact is absolutely enormous. This slide really shows you the hidden cost of not having that unity. In the US, you build your app once, you write your marketing materials once, in English. Done. Now, try to do that in Europe. You expand from Spain to Germany, and suddenly you're looking at a complete expensive overhaul for that new market. That friction just slows you down and burns through precious cash. And the same exact idea applies to the law. A US startup can set up one company and it works across all 50 states. Compare that to somewhere like India, where you're constantly battling different tax laws and labor regulations from state to state. It's a huge headache. The US model is basically scale once, operate everywhere. Okay, so you've got a frictionless launch pad, that's great. But to actually get to orbit, you need rocket fuel. And that brings us to our second pillar, this unique combination of American capital and culture. And this fuel comes in two forms. First, there's just an ocean of money, the deepest pool of venture capital in the world. And second, there's a culture that doesn't just tolerate taking massive risks, it often celebrates it. 50%. Why does this number? Well, it's the US share of all the venture capital deployed on the entire planet. Just let that sink in for a moment. Half. And here's what that 50% looks like. If you're a founder with a massive, world-changing idea, the US is really the only place with enough capital to let you take that big swing without constantly worrying about running out of money. But the money is only half the story, really. The culture is just as important. In many parts of the world, if your business fails, it's seen as a source of shame. In Silicon Valley, it's treated like a valuable lesson learned, a badge of honor that actually makes you a better bet for the next big thing. This encourages exactly the kind of moonshot thinking that leads to those massive power law returns. So let's move on to our third and final pillar. You've launched and you're funded. Now you need to actually grow. This is the growth engine, and it's powered by talent, eager customers, and just sheer market scale. These three things work together to create this incredible rapid feedback loop. You can hire the best people on the planet, get your product into the hands of customers who are excited to try new things, and you can test your ideas in a market that is huge enough to matter right from day one. This quote just nails the US talent advantage. Thanks to world-class universities and immigration that attracts the top minds in science and tech, an American startup can tap into a global talent pool without ever having to leave the country. And here's a really crucial insight. The US domestic market is so large and so wealthy that you don't even need to think about going global at first. Just capturing a tiny slice, just 1%, of the American market can be enough to build a massive venture-backed company. And this is exactly why that market is so valuable. It's not just about the number of people. Yeah, India has 4 times the population, but the US has a consumer base with incredibly high spending power. That means early signs of success are much clearer and way more valuable to investors. So let's bring it all together. You've got the launch pad, the rocket fuel, and the growth engine. They all feed into this clear, predictable pathway that investors have really come to trust. This is the journey. You launch without friction. You get quick feedback from wealthy consumers. You pour on venture capital to scale, and then you cash out through a really mature system of getting bought by a tech giant or going public on the world's deepest stock exchanges. And this is why other major regions just can't seem to compete at the same level. Each one is missing a critical piece of the machine. Europe's fragmentation means higher costs and slower innovation. China's policy risk can wipe out a business model overnight. India's lower purchasing power makes it harder to make money, and Japan's smaller market just limits that initial scale. No other country has all the pieces working together in quite the same way. The ultimate proof, of course, is in the results. The output of this power law machine is a portfolio of companies that have fundamentally reshaped the entire global economy. Just look at these names: Apple, Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft. The list goes on and on. These aren't just American companies. For many people around the world, they are the internet, and they are the direct results of the system we've just explored. And that leaves us with a final, fascinating question. This unique American system is incredibly effective at creating these tech giants. But given its deep roots in culture, law, and economic structure, is it an advantage that can ever truly be replicated anywhere else?
It would not be wrong to say that it is the venture capitalists who have taken the initial risk by investing in a startup that can potentially show power law returns. Why is it that US once again fares as one of the most advantageous locations for such scenario where a venture capitalist who would want to make an exit can find an easy exit? Stay tuned.